Hello and welcome back for another video. In the mid-1980s, British journalist Geoffrey Bernard had a weekly self-deprecating column in The Spectator. His writings chronicled his experiences in London's Soho district, focusing on themes of drinking, gambling, and bohemian life. When interviewed on air and asked to speak on his lifestyle, he would reply, "I'm one of the few people that lives what's called the low life." Meanwhile, in the north, Manchester band New Order were steadily shaking off the heavy spirits of losing their lead singer and starting to find their groove. And that groove featured a heavily programmed dance beat. Following the breakthrough that was Blue Monday, the group were inspired to continue pushing up against the line of experimentation, whether artistically or in their day-to-day lifestyles. Little did they know, both Geoffrey Bernard's and New Order's paths were about to cross in a rather unexpected way. So buckle up, because today we're going to discuss frequenting fetish clubs, exploiting a studio's nice gesture, and sampling the one and only Porky Pig. Kind of. This is the story of New Order's lowlife, 40 years on. Having recently shed the mantle of Joy Division, Power, Corruption, and Lies was a major step for New Order. After visiting Paradise Garage and other clubs in New York City on trips in '81 and '82, the group had discovered their way forward. Their sophomore album pushed them ahead into new territory, and their blockbuster single, Blue Monday, launched them into the forefront of electronic dance music, going on to allegedly become the biggest selling 12-inch single of all time. Despite the success of Blue Monday, manager Rob Gretton was keen to remind them their best song hadn't been written yet, so they should get back at it. The group would heed those words, eventually leading to recording a nearly 9-minute epic. Before that though, we gotta talk about taxes. Like all tales of woe, New Order's tax problems began at the hacienda. During a routine PYE inspection of the club's management would inadvertently provide the tax man with the cash books, not the books that excluded these payments as intended. One look at these books was all it took for the tax man to start investigating the hacienda, and with all the suspect things he was finding, decided to investigate the rest of the operation too. Factory records, Joy Division, New Order, and even the individual band members. In addition to a myriad of other fines, they would be forced to pay back taxes on bootleg Joy Division t-shirts. The band protested, proudly proclaiming they did not sell merchandise because they didn't believe in self-promotion of any kind, preferring to let the music speak for itself. Well, the tax man would scoff back, "Rubbish! How come wherever I go I see Joy Division and New Order t-shirts for sale, eh?" The group would be fined £10,000 for not doing their own t-shirts before being asked by the taxman to autograph all of his New Order LPs. After a combined total £1 million in fines, the highest fine for any pop group in UK history ever, it became quite clear to them that the people in charge, like their manager Rob Gretton and factory head boss Tony Wilson, didn't have any idea what they were doing. So living off garnished wages, the individual members would start spending their off time taking production gigs for other factory artists and honing their production chops. Despite their financial situation, this didn't stop them indulging in increasingly more drugs and all-night drinking sessions throughout 1984. One bout of this led to a particularly interesting performance on Rock Around the Clock for the BBC, where Barney was visibly irritated at his hangover, taking out his frustrations on, among other things, an orange microphone cover during Age of Consent. The entire performance is teetering on collapse, and as such, one of the more captivating. We'll add a link to the full performance below. To record Low Life, New Order went back to Britannia Row in London, where they did Power, Corruption, and Lies, once again opting to produce themselves, and band tensions slowly began to rear their head, particularly between Barney and Hooky. Lifestyle was a factor here. They'd be finishing in the studio around 1 a.m. and then Steven and Barney would proceed to stay up, indulging in various substances and watching movies like 2001 and Eraserhead. Only Hooky was up on time the next day working with engineer Mike Johnson. Barney would say to Hooky, "You know what your problem is? You're a lark and I'm a nightingale." Eventually they would set into a routine at Britannia, albeit with the writing getting done at different hours and by different members providing overdubs or contributing parts separately. They would continue the sessions at Jam Studios and begin indulging in the nightlife around London, including the Kit Kat Club in Notting Hill and Taboo in Leicester Square, hanging out with the likes of Killing Joke, the Banshees, Blitz Club tastemaker Steve Strange, and Mark Allman. Eventually, New Order would get introduced to the Skin 2 fetish club scene and find inspiration in these nights that would contribute themes on 2 of Low Life's songs. Apart from the wayward hours, and despite or because of their nocturnal exploits and debauchery the band were getting up to in and around London, Low Life yielded some incredible recordings. The combination of the sequencers and the rock sounds was perfectly balanced, and the band were very much together. The lyrics were mostly written by committee between Morris, Sumner, and Hook. The album was recorded using a 24-track Studer tape machine with pretty much the same gear used on Power, Corruption, and Lies, save for the addition of MIDI, which helped tremendously on the final song the group would complete, The Perfect Kiss. The Perfect Kiss is a song of many moods and intoxicating builds. This, to me, is the ultimate example of New Order eschewing conventional song structure and really just going for it. The breakdown in the middle, complete with a chorus of croaking frogs, and the final epic chorus run, complete with Hooky's best bass solo, make this a live favorite. To cap off the grandiosity of the ending, Steven got the idea of ending on a sample of Porky Pig saying, "Ba-da, that's all, folks." But despite being signed to Quest Records, a Warner Brothers subsidiary in the US, Warner apparently wanted to charge the group an astronomical figure for the privilege. So, as a compromise, they ended up sampling the Looney Tunes pinball machine, which is why the ending sounds like some mechanized pig growling. This track took even longer to program than Blue Monday, a total 9 months from start to finish, and apparently went through many incarnations. In one of its earliest forms, it was introduced as "I've Got a Cock Like the M1", when performed live for the first time at the Royal Festival Hall on the 14th of May, 1984. I'll add a link to that performance below. I'm certainly glad that they decided on something less embarrassing for the title. After finishing recording this single at Jam Studios, the band decamped back to Britannia Row to mix. For the release, there would be different versions. Manager Rob Gretton wanted a dub, declaring, "Dub it up." So they would do a 12-inch and a 7-inch version. It would take them nearly 48 hours to mix the different versions, one straight after the other. The B-side, Kiss of Death, features a number of samples and melodic elements not present on the A-side. The Perfect Kiss's music video was filmed by Silence of the Lambs director Jonathan Demme and features New Order performing the song live in the studio. This performance is even longer than the 12-inch version, and the audio would also see release as an edit on the Perfect Kiss 7-inch, and later in full length on the Retro bonus disc. A popular theory is that the song is a metaphor for the then growing AIDS epidemic, but the lyrics apparently recount the tale of a former acquaintance of the group that was shot and killed in Moss Side, a particularly rough area in Manchester. Original 12-inch for the Perfect Kiss. Inner sleeve. Reissue 12-inch. Love that wrap around embossed the Perfect Kiss. Inner sleeve. Exclusive reissue, orderable from neworder.com on a mirrored sleeve as they originally intended to release it. Inner sleeve, the same as the other reissue, except the vinyl is on clear. And in terms of track listing, you've got the full 12-inch version of the Perfect Kiss on the A side. The B side has the Kiss of Death, as well as the Perfect Pit, which sounds like a really bad early version of the rhythm track for the Perfect Kiss. The Perfect Kiss was released alongside Low Life on the 13th of May, 1985 by Factory Records. Described by Barney as the redneck tune, Love Vigilantes is a fairly straightforward rock number with Steven on drums and Sumner blowing away on his melodica. This track began life as a bass and drums jam and featured quite uncharacteristic lyrics for Barney, remarking on the futility of war. The lyrics were based on the Falklands conflict between the UK and Argentina in 1982, which Barney was actively following and seemed quite fascinated with. Allegedly, the others would wonder if he just wanted to sign up and join the army, as he would inquire out loud with things like, "Do you get per day money in the army? Do you think they'd mind if I don't get up early?" The outro features some excellent scattershot rhythm guitar playing from Sumner and sounds almost country western in final moments. The Perfect Kiss is sequenced as Low Life's second track. Breaking cardinal sin number 1. A band's singles shall not appear on the LP. Here we get a fairly butchered album edit of the full 8-minute, 46-second masterpiece that appears on the 12-inch. I've tried to reconcile my feelings with this one over the decades, but I've never understood why they did this. Peter Hook calls this version a taster in his book, and maybe that was the intention, to ensure that people who were getting the album would also double back to pick up the 12-inch single version when they realized how short the album edit is. I get the desire to truncate it, but it's just way too short. And the way this version ends, on a fade, tragic. This edit also skips the third verse entirely, and what's worse, in earlier mixes of the record, you could actually hear Barney gearing up to deliver the verse. He can be heard saying the beginning of "when" before the tape gets cut. Fortunately, this is being addressed on newer remasters. This Time of Night is a very dark hybrid rock and dance tune inspired by New Order's Nights at Skin 2 and featuring the same progression as the Cure song A Forest. Almost inaudible, this is where the album gets its title. Growing up, I used to think the song just started with a few seconds of silence, but buried deep down in the mix is Jeffrey Bernard declaring, "I'm one of the few people that live what's called the low life." Clearly Steven or Barney must have felt an affinity for the remark and thought it perfect to have on the record, not to mention title it after. However, when Jeffrey Bernard found out the band was using his voice, he would threaten to sue. Already annoyed by the Porky Pig sampling debacle, they would simply keep it in and just mix it down low and have the beat come in slightly over top, masking part of it. This Time of Night shows off New Order's abilities for crafting strong album tracks. It features live drums alongside drum machine, and the highlight is this lovely synth string and echoey piano solo following the chorus. Sunrise, originally called the Spaghetti Western one, is another dark hidden gem. And again, the ominous intro also reminds a bit of The Cure's A Forest. Much is being made of Sumner's vocals. Can he sing? Can he not sing? Sunrise is the perfect example of just what makes him a great vocalist, because it's not about how perfect a vocal he can deliver, but the emotion behind the performance. There's this great quote from David Byrne: "The better a singer's voice, the harder it is to believe what they're saying." This track has Barney stretched to the very limits of his vocal range. In its final moments and over an epic bass melody, Sumner declares, "Whatever you may think of me, whatever you may say, I've lived my whole life in danger. You've lived your life in hate." The bass throughout Sunrise is some of Hookie's best work, and the guitar playing is particularly metallic sounding, in part due to placing small metal washers just under the guitar bridge. Elegia is a 5-minute edited down version of what was originally a 17.5-minute behemoth of a track. Greek for elegy, this instrumental was intended as a tribute to their former late singer, Ian Curtis. The track was originally written for a film commissioned by ID magazine and was inspired by Ennio Morricone's For a Few Dollars More score. The film was not completed, so the band saved the recording for their upcoming album. To record Elegia, they had taken advantage of an offer for free studio time at CTS Studios in Wembley. They offered a day, meaning roughly 10 hours, which New Order took to mean 24. They had previously cut and mastered many of their records there with a guy named Melvin, who was desperate for them to get into the attached studio to impress the owners, his bosses. He was hoping they'd like the studio so much they would come back for a proper session. Melvin assured them, "Once you begin recording in this studio, you won't be able to resist continuing your projects here." Unbeknownst to him, New Order were slowly becoming experts at marathon substance-enhanced recording. And so Elegia was recorded in a single 24-hour session, to which Rob Gretton proclaimed, "Now that's what I call value." As the group left that morning, clutching the finished tape, Melvin, half asleep, inquired, "You will come back, won't you, to use the studio properly?" To which the group assured him, "Yes, mate, no problem." But they never did. The full 17.5-minute version, timing mistakes and all, would later be released on the bonus disc to their 2002 retro compilation, as well as a 2008 reissue. But the edited version on Low Life perfectly assembles all of this track's most touching moments. Sooner Than You Think was written after a party in New Order's hotel one night, and the lyrics are inspired by the prospect of heading out on tour in Ireland. It's got a particularly impassioned vocal from Barney and a surprisingly long intro for an album track that moves through different moods containing musical and percussive elements similar to Thieves Like Us and The Perfect Kiss. Barney sings, "Your country is a wonderful place. It pales my England into disgrace. To buy a drink that is so much more reasonable, I think I'll go there when it gets seasonable." I know I keep recognizing the outros of these songs, but they are all so good. It's like they wanted every song to hit a towering crescendo in their final moments. Here it's Barney's jangling guitar skittering alongside Hookie's bass while Jillian's Prophet 5 synth chords swoop upwards. Brilliant. Subculture was the second of New Order's Skin 2 Fetish Club commentaries. It features a walking bass line that Hooky confesses was stolen from Michael Jackson's Beat It. Despite an excellent melody and main synthesizer line, this song suffers from a weak vocal performance, allegedly delivered by Barney at 5 o'clock in the morning while high. The lyrics were inspired by a blind girl Barney met dressed in a skin-tight rubber dress and were more or less made up 5 minutes before recording. Face Up is a track in 2 halves with an arpeggiated intro, apparently inspired by the film Caligula, before transitioning into Temptation's smaller sibling. Barney sings some pretty awkward lines here with the classic coupling in verse 2 of "I feel so low, I feel so humble, sometimes in life we take a tumble," and in verse 3 of "Your hair was long, your eyes was blue, guess what I'm gonna do to you." Despite the unfortunate lyrics, this is probably the most joyous ending to a record coming out of the 80s, with the layers of guitar, synth, and Barney's vocals intermingling on the final chorus. This album is noteworthy for committing up until that point many cardinal sins. In terms of presentation, they went from their previous release, Power, Corruption, and Lies, displaying a substitution cipher on the sleeve, to just big contrasty face. Cardinal sin number 2, the band shall not appear on the album cover. Peter Saville was once again given the job of designing the sleeve, and he racked his brains. Tom Atencio over at their American label Quest was constantly on Saville to please put the band on the cover. When asked, Saville would say, "He was right. I felt it was time," but he spent so long deliberating that a panicked Tony Wilson and Rob Gretton made a special trip down to London to ask him what was taking so long. As Pete explained his concept for the sleeve, Tony went silent, lost in thought, while Rob was just open-mouthed and in shock. Based on their reactions, Saville then decided that this was a great idea. They then made a pact not to tell the band. Saville persuaded the members to separately go into what was called a promotional photo shoot to be used, he said, after the record was released. He knew that if they came together, they would never take it seriously. The photos were shot by Trevor Key using a brand new film stock called Polaroid Roll, and Pete stopped the individual sessions once he saw the shots he wanted to use. He then decided to treat the photos using a technique called New Computer Reprographics, which allowed for the landscape shape oblong rectangle of the photograph to be treated and compressed into a square using a new computer called a Skytext machine, distorting the members and making them look slightly off in an ominous sort of way. Peter felt that Steve's picture had turned out the strongest, being super contrasty and sharp, and decided to use it as his number 1. But he also felt that if he were to use anyone's photo too much, it would be going against his feeling that everyone in the band was equal, i.e., there was no band leader. To further compound this, he decided to wrap the entire thing in tracing paper, stealing the idea from a volume on his bookshelf, and seal the package so that it had to be torn to be opened. He would later comment, "I felt much better about it by using the tracing paper as it further obscured their faces." Lowlife Sleeve is unique in New Order's discography in featuring the cliche of having the band's faces prominently displayed while simultaneously subverting the trope of having the lead singer on the cover, instead going with the drummer for the front and Jillian, the quietest member, for the reverse. While on tour in Japan, fans would be flocking around Steven, thinking he was the lead singer. The tracing paper sleeve adds another layer of sophistication and style. The idea that you have to destroy the tracing paper cover just to get at the record. This multi-layered composition is further enhanced by the overprinted text on the cover, which is a direct spoof of Joseph Mueller Brockman's Dare film poster of 1960. The vertical orientation of the text was also used on the Perfect Kiss release, where it was blind embossed. Original Canadian pressing, inner sleeve, original Quest Records US pressing, complete with a tracing paper obi, inner sleeve, Factory Records pressing with the tracing paper, inner sleeve, Rhino Records reissue, inner sleeve. This one's nice and heavy. 2023 Definitive Edition reissue, inner sleeve. And inside this Factory Records, the complete graphic album, there are some really cool running sheets, including photographs that I've never seen from the original Trevor Key photo shoot. So, following the album, Subculture was released as the second and final single from Lowlife on the 28th of October, 1985. John Roby was an American producer and remixer that was introduced to the band during the Confusion sessions and would be enlisted to remix Subculture for the single release. This version is a drastic departure from the album mix. Roby's 12-inch and 7-inch single mixes feature a re-recorded Barney vocal, more club-oriented electronic instrumentation, and for the first time, female backing vocals. The B-side is an instrumental remix titled Dub Vulture, an alternate 7-inch edit of the Roby remix taken from the Benelux version of the Subculture single later appeared on the group's 1987 compilation Substance and is probably the best known version. Possibly due to the hatred cast at this version, a long-standing rumor held that Peter Saville reportedly deemed the mix of the song unworthy of his talents, with Saville's input present only in a PSA Peter Saville Associates credit in the typography. However, this rumor was debunked in 2017 when Saville was asked about it and said, "I never had the authority to say that there shouldn't be a sleeve. No, all I can presume is that no one asked for one." Peter Hook goes on in his book Substance at length about his own hatred of Roby, and many fans are divided on his efforts on Subculture, Shell Shock, and Shame of the Nation. For my part, I grew up with the Substance mix of Subculture first, so I don't mind the more produced sound of it, despite some obvious flourishes that just sound like Roby showing off. There exists a Razor-made Sarm West mix that sounds sort of like a halfway point between the album version and the Roby remix. Personally, I think it's okay. It's missing the girly backing vocals, which is good, but I find it's unnecessarily long. Worth a listen. Original UK pressing. Original Japanese pressing, complete with obi strip, as well as this rather unsightly sales sticker. Thank you very much, Montreal record store Oaks 33 Tours. (2023) reissue, Subculture, Dub Vulture. Much thicker pressing. And that same year in 2023, we would get the Low Life Definitive Edition box set. This features bonuses on CD 2, including a writing session recording of The Perfect Kiss and several others. It's got Elegia, the full-length version, Love Vigilantes, a TV pitch instrumental edit of that, Skull Crusher and Let's Go instrumental demos, which would eventually get re-released in their final versions on the Salvation soundtrack in 1987. The really cool bonuses are on the 2 DVDs. So DVD 1 is Live in Tokyo, the Kozenikin Hall Tokyo show, which was also released many years earlier as Pump Full of Drugs, filmed by Tony Wilson. This disc also includes Rotterdam Arena, Netherlands 85, and Live in Manchester at the Whistle Test at the Hacienda 85. DVD 2 includes Live in Leuven at the Manhattan Club, Leuven, Belgium 85. Live in Toronto at the International Center, Toronto, Canada 85, as well as the Perfect Film Rehearsal Room, Cheetham Hill, Manchester 85, and of course the Perfect Kiss video, directed by Jonathan Demme. Treasure trove. All right, so let's open her up. This lists all the cool stuff. Previously shown full recreation tracing paper sleeve of the vinyl. And this is one of those lavish books that you get in there with all kinds of archival cool stuff, be it photos, be it some of their gear and amazing photos. Like, I've never seen some of these previously released before. Sheets of paper with lyrics or runouts and programming details on some of their synths and drum machines. Lyrics to The Perfect Kiss. I assume Jillian's jumper and really cool poster. Low Life bag. Spend hours with this book. CD 1, CD 2 with the extras. That's the first DVD. And the second DVD. Low Life is commonly considered to be among New Order's strongest work, showcasing the moment they completed their transformation from post-punk holdovers to dance rockers. John Bush of AllMusic wrote that Low Life was, quote, in every way the artistic equal of New Order's previous album, Power, Corruption, and Lies, as well as the point where the band's fusion of rock and electronics became seamless. David Quantick, writing in Uncut, felt that Low Life was the first New Order album that sounds like an album, with Bernard Sumner's Most Human lyrics complementing Gillian Gilbert and Stephen Morris's pop access and Peter Hook's breathtaking bass performances. In 2000, Q Magazine placed Low Life at number 97 in its list of the 100 greatest British albums ever. And finally, Low Life was included in the book 1001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die. I personally consider it their second greatest album, behind 1989's Technique, and despite some personal issues, reconciling the butchered edit of The Perfect Kiss and the dull vocals and overall production on the album version of Subculture, I feel its 8 songs do a fantastic job of showcasing the various sides to the group. As the years would progress, the band's individual ambitions would continue to create tension on their working relationship, as they would write some of the most important singles of the late 80s and eventually write the perfect album, according to Tony Wilson, with their final record for Factory in 1989, Technique. But that's a story for another video. So that's gonna do it for today. I'm gonna leave links to several New Order live performances from around the Low Life era down in the description. For further reading on this era, check out Substance Inside New Order from Peter Hook, Chapter and Verse, Barney's book. Steven has 2 excellent books. I have them digitally, so I don't have the physical ones to show you, but they're great. And if you want to see some beautiful photography and other art from Saville, check out Factory, the complete graphic album. If you enjoyed this video, kindly give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing so you don't miss out on any of my other New Order related content. What do you think of Low Life, and where would you rank it in New Order's discography? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching. You can see more of my videos right here. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you guys in the next one.